Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it.
I am too, Don. I like winning stuff. I like winning championships. An early game crew, we get to waltz in here as winners because not only did Don win her 10th SEC regular season title, and it's going to be a pursuit for an 11th SEC tournament title, I do believe. I actually have that written down somewhere to get the specifics. But there's so many of them, it's hard to count. That's the territory that you're in. But you did it by scoring 112 points. You put numbers on the board. I'm amazed. I'm also Elijah Campbell, and he is Preston Thorne. She is Jen Jensen. And we get to start a Friday show here on the early game talking about nets being cut down.
Did they cut down the net?
No.
No net cut
Ceremony on the floor.
Okay.
Which I expected. Okay. I expected ceremony on the floor. You get the hat, get the trophy.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll save the scissors for the SEC tournament.
So the biggest takeaway, yes, they won their 11th championship, blah, 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 blah. But did the ghost of Sophie Cunningham enter the building last night in the form of Sanaya Taylor? Did that happen?
We got a villain.
Did that happen? Only if the game was close could we have really sunk our teeth into
Could there actually have been, some real hatred? But she checked back into the game in the first half after being pulled. Booze all over the place. It was great. It was great.
Sophie Cunningham is somewhere smiling.
Sophie Cunningham, welcome back. Close enough. Welcome back, Sophie Cunningham, to college basketball.
Reincarnated.
Now, here's the only thing that can keep her from being Sophie Cunningham. They're not any good.
Yeah, that's when. So when we'll talk about rivalries later, you can't just be a villain. Your team has to be competitive also, and they're not.
That's the thing. Sophie Cunningham was good,
right?
And
that squad was
Sophie
good.
Cunningham found a way to beat South Carolina.
That's what makes
once.
That's what makes it a thing.
Yeah, it made it a thing because you were actually threatened by them. When you beat them by 41, I don't think you're very threatened by them.
Mm-hmm.
Or you score 112 points in the game.
That qualifies as an offensive explosion?
If that doesn't qualify as an offensive explosion, then I don't know what would. I don't know what we can qualify an offensive explosion at that point in time. It is a remarkable box score. When you go back and you look at this game in terms of just some raw numbers, there are a couple here that if you didn't watch the game and you just looked, right? Because you could watch the game and you know incredibly how dominant it was, how easy that first quarter was, right? You scored as many buckets almost in that first quarter as Missouri had points. Put the ball in the basket 12 times, none of them from three-point range. Didn't need it. And Missouri only had 13 points. But you look at the box score and you'll see Medina Okot only played 20 minutes, so half the game. So in half of the game's action, she scored 26 points, grabbed 17 rebounds. So if you really want to get creative here, she was on pace for a 52.34 rebound night.
Nice. Those are Darius Gray type numbers.
Yeah, it is. Back in the day, we would say that was Chamberlain-esque, but now it's Darius Gray-esque in terms of putting up those type of numbers. She did that in 20 minutes last night. And, of course, no Tessa last night, no Adele Tack. And guess what? Still didn't matter. You still scored 112 points in that game. 52% from the field. Made 8 threes, but actually they took 29 threes in that game, which a little uncharacteristic for this team. That's one of the bottom in all of college basketball when it comes to three-point attempt rate. But I don't know if they've ever made it look so easy. And last night they made it look so easy, and they absolutely cruised to the point where if you'd have told Dawn going into that game that you'd give up 31 to Missouri in one quarter, she probably wouldn't be very cool with that.
Right.
But then you add in the context that you outscored them by 20 in the first, 5 in the second, lost by 3 in the third, and then outscored them by 19 in the fourth. Probably alleviates any of that a little bit.
Yeah, and especially that part about the 19 in the fourth, because a lot of times what happens in these blowout type of games is you get a big lead, and then the other team just sort of like chips away because you lose interest in the game. And so that did not happen. And that's a positive that you can take, aside from the huge number and aside from the big deficit. being able to finish a game, being able to kind of stay focused in the game is a skill that disciplined teams have.
And if you probably told Kelly Harper before the game you'd score 71 against South Carolina, you're like, oh,
we're in it.
We might have shocked the world. Don't put that cart before the horse there, Kelly, because that ended up being a blowout. And again, clinches another SEC title. They're 14-1 in SEC play going into the final game at Kentucky. I think they win that one too. As much of a threat, I think, as Kentucky can be, they've been kind of a frustrating watch this year because they haven't really put it together the way they probably should. I expect them to win and be 15-1, so that it'd be an SEC regular season title. Once again, at a record of 15-1. They have done that a lot. But what stands out about how this team was able to win this SEC regular season and be dominantly the best team in this league from start to finish?
Versatility. Being able to do it in a number of different ways throughout the season. Being able to run different lineups out. Being able to run zone defenses.
Dawn Staley playing his zone defense. She admittedly not the biggest fan of doing it.
Admittedly not very happy doing it, but just doing it begrudgingly. Being able to play zone defenses, being able to run that big lineup out that she ran, being able to run the guard-heavy lineup that she's run out. So I think this team is unique because when you win so many games, each team has a different personality. Every team has a different personality. This team's ability to be versatile and multiple, truly multiple, is what I think was their benefit throughout the year and might actually be their biggest strength going into the tournaments.
They are the closest thing that you can get in the sport to being a true basketball chameleon. They can win a bunch of different ways, and it doesn't matter what the game requires. Do you need to be able to win a three-point shooting contest? Tessa Johnson can help you do that. I think I proved at LSU that Raven can knock down open shots if you leave her open. Tessa can go unconscious when she's healthy and out there playing. Tanaya can knock down shots. Your guards can win you games. Your bigs can win you games. Oh, you're missing a lot of shots and you just need to buy a basket at any point in the game. Let Joyce take over and cook. She could do that. She's been putting up 12 or 20 in games pretty consistently throughout this SEC season. Oh, you need, a big bucket from a freshman. You have two that have made some big buckets for you. You need to win a defensive slobber knocker. And when your offense has completely gone out the window, you've proven that you could do that so far in these 15 SEC games in a league that is, as I would say, deep as it's ever been. There are more good teams in the SEC now. I think the Big Ten maybe has more better teams outside of South Carolina and Texas, because you have UCLA and you got a bunch of teams that are in the net that are in the top 20. So you probably have maybe analytically inclined better teams, but not as many good teams as the SEC has.
And that's why the regular season title is so important.
Yes,
that's why it's obviously you want to win every tournament, you want every time you play, but it's sort of the true measuring stick of domination throughout the duration of a season.
If I am in that selection committee and I'm picking out one seeds, a team that dominated their regular season in a really good league, in one of the best leagues in America, is, to me, a better tell that you are a great basketball team as opposed to somebody who maybe finished second or third in their league but won the conference tournament. Give me the larger sample size. Are the tournaments more fun? Yes, absolutely. And I am so amped for conference tournament season. The fact that we are here gives me butterflies. I have a nervous excitement. I'm so excited for conference tournaments to start. Even though I do feel a sense of sadness that the regular season is gone. I don't like to wish my life away.
Understand.
But I'm very excited that we have now gotten to this point. I think what South Carolina has done in the last few regular seasons, at least the last 5 or 6 that they've won in a row, is proof of their dominance more so than what they do in Greenville.
Yeah, and that makes sense because, again, they've done it throughout the course of this season. It's not just about a team getting hot or something along those lines, even though they still want that one in Greenville because I imagine that's part of the triumvirate. You sort of lay out the goals for a team anytime throughout the year, win the regular season, win the conference tourney, get to the Final Four, win the championship. I think that's probably the hierarchy of how the things go. So they've struck the first one off the list. Now they're moving on to the second one. And I don't say it sarcastically this time. All their goals are still in front of them. So there's still a lot for them to play for.
More
and
goals.
Yes, everything that they have to play for is still out there for them to take. They've just taken the first step towards it. And I'm sure that's what the conversation was like in the locker room after the game. Like, this is great. Awesome. Hey, Tanaya, you see how this feels? This is awesome. Imagine what the next one feels like.
Everybody in this room, except for the freshmen, can attest that the ones that you win after this are more fun.
Right.
So this is your preview, your free trial.
Cool. This is great.
The free trial is here. You got to experience it. Now you got to pay a little bit for the full version. And that's, I think, what they're that type of conversation they're having in that locker room. 803-404-6100. That is the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. And our pal Joe is up with us early this morning. Good morning, Joe. Welcome back to the early game, my friend.
Hey, fellas, good morning. I hope all is well with everybody. I see that you all made it in safe with this crazy rain, with the rain falling. So listen, after Ashlyn Watkins told us that she was going to sit out for a year, and I would have came to you guys and said, hey, man, Malaysia Fulwiley said she's going to skip town, and Chloe Kitts is going to be out for the season as well. But guess what? We're going to win the SEC championship. Would you guys have believed that?
That's a great point.
Oh, if I would have believed it, Joe, I wouldn't have believed that you would have done it at 15-1. Like, it would have been one of those things where, like, it's a jumbled mess at the top and the league cannibalizes itself, and you probably end up winning it at, like, 13-3 or 12-4. And even then, that would have been a significant accomplishment. But I don't know if I would have believed 15-1.
Right, man. So it just speaks in volumes, the talent that we have, and how Dawn can allow them, how she coaches them to the point where they buy into, hey, we all can do this. As talented as we all can be patient. We all can wait our turn to do what we need to do to accomplish what we've accomplished this year. That's huge, man. It says a lot about her. It says a lot about the talent that she has around her, and it just speaks in volumes, man. Everybody has to be watching South Carolina right now. You know, and I have a question. Is this Okot's last year, or is she able to come back next year? Is that something that's up in the air?
To my understanding, it was her last year of eligibility.
Okay.
It's my understanding. Okay. I want to double check that because
you never know.
Eligibility is so confusing that I could hear something once and I'll buy into it and believe it, and turns out, we can get another year later on.
We might be just an appeal away.
We very well could.
It's a buzz that's going around. That's why I asked. But anyway, check the birth certificate. You guys have a good day, man, and enjoy your weekend. Be safe out there, Jen.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you, Jen.
Thank you, Joe. Good to have Jen back. Yeah, thank you, Joe. As always, always a good day when Joe gets to call in.
Yeah, man, eligibility is just an appeal away. We have no idea what anything means anymore.
Because she is a senior, listed as a senior.
What does that mean?
But what the hell does that mean? I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm lost. I'm lost. You are an appeal away. And I have now become more hesitant on talking about somebody's eligibility than I ever have at any point in my career, because I can say, senior, she walked on senior night. Yeah, that's it. Raven Johnson had 2 senior nights. Because remember last year, she walked and she got the one more year chant and gave the people exactly what they wanted and gave them one more year and decided to win another SEC regular season title. And guess what? It was fun. Now, what may or may not be fun, that will depend on one's point of view, and also ends up depending on what actually happens on the field. It may be a fun weekend. It may not. South Carolina, Clemson, baseball, maybe the best baseball rivalry in America when it comes to the sport of college baseball. But is that title of best rivalry in the sport enough to give this weekend some juice, despite South Carolina falling to Queens and Army and Northern Kentucky? Do we still have juice for this rivalry, and where can we find it? Well, we'll try to discuss that coming up next here on the early game.
I-20 eastbound of Faro Road, the right lane currently blocked, so stay left if you're approaching I-20 eastbound at Faro Road. And weather-wise, yep, a little bit of rain yet this morning. Should be clearing out by lunchtime is kind of the hope. Maybe a few showers in the southern part of the Midlands a little after lunch. But rain clearing out today is the main forecast. 63 for a high, 67 tomorrow, 77 on Sunday. 58 with rain right now.
It's that weekend. South Carolina, Clemson, maybe the most heated rivalry and most hotly contested, I'd say at least non-conference rivalry. Even try to think through some like regular season rivalries in baseball, or not regular season, conference rivalries. I still can't find one in which people care the most about that game than I have experienced here. Always a fun weekend every year. In the format itself, I've been very pro Carolina Clemson format. It's always a fun weekend, but has it lost a little bit of juice on our side because of how the season started? I think it maybe a little, maybe not lost juice, lost enthusiasm.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could definitely understand how you might be like, oh, looking at the statistics, looking at the game, we just lost a midweek to Queens. That's not going to be great. But my position would be, and I understand that, but my position would be, well, when else are you going to have a chance to turn it around? And that's why this series is important. That's why you play these series. That's why I love that it's placed this early in the season. Is an opportunity to change the trajectory or your perspective on the season. So I think it's very exciting that it's right here, right now, especially coming off of that loss. No, they didn't play well. No, things weren't going great. But so what? Now you have a chance. If anything was going to change, the way this team approached the game, the way this team played, it is a series against those dudes up there. So I really am excited that the series is here because now we get a chance to just make a decision, man. Like I said, there's a referendum on the team. We get to just say, hey, we're behind them for this game. And at the end of this weekend, we'll see you on the other side, and we can figure out where we stand with this team at the end of this.
I think the biggest thing is an opportunity to win some people back.
Absolutely.
Are you going to be able to win back everybody? No. But you take 2 of 3 from Clemson. Then I think you are going to see more people in the ballpark. Then people maybe are a little more intrigued. I think it may be easier to forget those certain losses the more they get further in the rear view if you give them something to get really excited about. Clemson's a really good baseball team, undefeated. They've taken care of business in a lot of their games, and they've played one of the same opponents you did. The team that beat you on last Friday, is the same team that went to Clemson to start the year, and Clemson swept them, right? It can change maybe a little bit with that transitive property there, how you feel about this. And it's the fact not just that you beat a really good team, it'd be the fact that you beat your most hated rival, even in a year where you kind of stumble a little bit coming out of the gates. Now, Paul Maneri did talk about this because last year I remember him talking about the rivalry, and he almost was a little astonished at how seriously people took it. Took a series this early in the season.
Yeah, and that is a traditional thing. That is what a lot of new coaches coming into this thing look around and they're like, oh, I didn't notice. I wasn't aware that this was that serious. I know Will Muschamp looked around and he was like, oh, I didn't know y'all took this game that seriously. It is a different animal, and I think maybe after being around, I haven't heard this clip, and I'm interested to hear what he thinks now after having experienced it.
Insert SpongeBob time frame jump 1 year later.
Well, I think there's more to it just because, it's Clemson. I mean, the Clemson-South Carolina rivalry is maybe the best rivalry in all of college baseball. It means a lot to everybody in the state, one way or the other, whichever side you're on. So there's no hiding that fact. I mean, I could give all the coach speak in the world to the players. Hey, we could, it's just another game, and we have, a bunch of games left after that. But the reality is it's a little different. It's a lot different, actually, and I have a lot of respect for Clemson and their program and what they've done already this year. So it'll clearly be the most challenging opposition that we'll have had this year. So, the game's hard enough to play, and especially when you're playing against a really good team, you can't, try to hit the ball harder or throw the ball faster or run faster. You can't take yourself out of your own game. And I've talked to the players about that. But at the same time, their focus should be laser sharp, and their hustle and their enthusiasm and their energy and want to get after it and play with a lot of confidence and all those kinds of things, because it's obvious who our opponent is, and it's something that we're looking forward to. I thought we had 3 really good games last year, and unfortunately we just didn't get the job done towards the end of the games. Last couple innings kind of determined the outcome of those games, and I feel like our bullpen is more equipped now. If we get into that position, hopefully we'll be able to finish the job. But yeah, it's they're big games. I'm not downplaying them at all. It's hopefully going to be games that we'll play really, really well and hopefully have some good outcomes.
They are very big games. And there is a lot, again, one thing about Paul is sometimes he will speak a lot of very truthful sentiments. However, there's a lot of, we don't want to hear that right now, Paul type stuff at the end. Is like, we were in all 3 games last year. Again, I think if there are Gamecock fans that feel like that sentence is tattooed on their chest across most sports the last couple of years, but they did get to the last couple innings last year in some of those games, and it fell apart. That's why there's a big emphasis on the bullpen this weekend. But I think now, after a year after his introduction to this series, I think there's a level of, not only are we playing a really good baseball team early in the season for 3 straight games in 3 different venues, this is culturally significant. Yeah,
absolutely. Because and also because of the format, everybody gets a little piece of it. It's not that it's just in one spot. It's all across the state. I was yesterday evening, I was up in BHP.
Yeah, you know me.
I was up in the area, and it was really interesting because in the school we were at Belton Elementary, and there was some, obviously, geographically, we were in enemy territory.
Yes.
And then you have some folks who are Gamecock fans that are like, we're holding it down. We're ready for the weekend.
We're holding it down.
There's still some, this is friendly space right here, right? And they were excited about this weekend coming up, even though all of them were very much aware that we lost to Queens. It doesn't matter because this series is now. And that's why nobody would have picked to lose to Queens. Would not have prescribed that. But this series coming now, right on the heels of that, is maybe the best thing that could have happened for this team, because they get a chance to immediately men in black that out of the fan base's mind, right? You went on Friday night. You win tonight, boop, we're in.
Yeah.
That's how, because we're suckers. Just like, I forget the caller who said it yesterday. Brad, I think it was, the most Gamecock thing we could do is just pull us right back in.
Is win and get you right back
right
invested.
On a Friday, you go out there and win it. We're like, we're back, baby. It can happen. And that's why the placement of this game is really crucial for the team this year.
And if we look at the pitching, the probable pitching rotation for the weekend, a little bit of a mix-up. Riley Goodman's been the Friday starter. Per the email, Josh Gunther, right-handed pitcher, 1.07, 88 ERA, and 8 innings pitched this year, is going to be rolled out there for South Carolina. Maybe it's an opener situation.
Okay.
Where he has been out of the bullpen. And Aiden Knack for Clemson, no surprise there. He is their best pitcher, their Friday pitcher. He has yet to give up an earned run so far this year in a couple of starts on Fridays. And then Saturday, over at Segra, Amp Phillips going to be on the mound. Now, 10 strikeouts, 5 walks. I want to see that go down a little bit, but I'm a sucker for a 1.85 ERA, so we'll see how he does against a much better batting lineup. Michael Sharman, senior left-handed pitcher for Clemson, is going to be out on the mound on Saturday. And then Sunday, projected starter Riley Goodman, who's been pitching on Fridays, against Talon Bell for Clemson. But coming up next, we talked about the series, how important this is, the amount of pressure that's on South Carolina, but how can they win this thing? What is the pathway for South Carolina to get everybody back invested into this season and turn this thing around with a series win against Clemson? We'll tell you coming up next. Spring, it's here. You know, like that sign in a rearview mirror says objects are closer, maybe closer than they appear. Well, that's spring right now. It is coming up on you. And that means spring cleaning is now a little more urgent because that needs to be done as soon as possible. And if it's overwhelming, if you're like me and you're a little bit of a procrastinator, then my friends at Zero Res Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning are here to help and get your place not just incredibly clean, cleaner for longer than you could do it, and also having the safest clean possible because of their patented zero water technology, which is non-toxic, completely safe for people, pets, and the planet. It keeps you and your family safer and keeps your home cleaner for longer. And of course, just the name alone tells you what it's going to leave behind, which is zero res, zero residue. Spell it backwards or forwards, just know it's the right way to clean, and go ahead and schedule online today at zerorescolumbia.com.
I-20 eastbound at Faro Road, the right lane is blocked. So staying left at I-20 eastbound at Faro Road and packing a little patience will get you through there, okay? Morning rain should be clearing out by lunchtime. 63 for the high. Tomorrow, it will be clear, and it'll be clear all weekend. 67 for the high tomorrow. 77. That's right, 77 for your Sunday. And right now, we do have some scattered rain across the Midlands. It's 58.
So much pressure this weekend for the South Carolina Gamecock baseball team. Got a game tonight against Clemson at Founders. Game tomorrow at Segra. And you can hear myself and Tyler Head from 1 to 2:30 at Segra Park. It's basically our version of college baseball game day. Jack Feltry's going to stop by, too, and say what's up.
Really quickly, we're going to be all right weather-wise?
It's a really good question.
Is this stuff moving through now and going to get out of here?
I'm going to look at the weather report right now, just from what my phone says. And Apple's usually pretty accurate. We have lots of rain this morning, but as of noon, that drops off to 0%.
Okay.
So we should be good. Now, I'm not looking at a radar, but it is nasty out there right now. I can assume that Founders Park is tarped up, if you will. Segra's probably tarped up, getting this bad boy ready for the weekend. I feel good about it.
All right.
I'll say this. I feel better that we played every game this series than not. And I know the first year this year was a real bummer because the game at Founders got rained out the first year this year before the Segra game. But assuming we play all these games, it's going to be pressure-packed because you have a season to turn around. And worst case scenario, if this ends up being a sweep, you are 500 after your first 12 games in the season. Not ideal. But how can you avoid that and beat a really good Clemson team? Because you look at the results that Clemson's had this year. They've run-rolled a few teams. They've taken care of business in their weekend series against Army and Bryant. They've taken care of their midweeks against teams like Charlotte and Presbyterian. But now it's their first really big test, too. And looking up and down, pitching rotation, roster, Preston Thorne, your biggest thing for South Carolina that's got to happen to give themselves a chance to win this thing and turn some heads would be?
Well, I mean, the biggest indicator is the idea of the big inning, right? Jamie Bradford did a great job. If you follow Jamie, you can go look on his blog. He did an awesome job of doing this. It's sort of this well-known idea in college baseball specifically, but baseball in general. The big inning. What is a big inning? 3+ runs in an inning. How many times can you put those together? The team that does that traditionally wins. Last year in college baseball, a team with a big inning won 70% of the games played throughout college baseball last year. So it's a pretty strong indicator that you will win. Now this year, looking at the numbers, and again, this is all information that's out there, but Jamie did a real good job of making it concise. This year, played 8 games. You've had 6 games with a big inning. Surprise, surprise, when you have a big inning, you're supposed to win. Now, the only caveat to that is that South Carolina did have a big inning against Army, but it was too late, too little, too late.
They gave up too many paper cut innings.
They gave up too many big innings on the other side, right? And so the big inning is something that you would look for. Preferably, you want them early so you can knock the pitchers around. And for us, you want to have that big inning early to get their rotation off. You gain confidence and momentum. 3, get the fans into the game. People are going to show up, but if you put up a 3 spot in the second inning, in the bottom of the second, people sit up in their chairs. Now I'm making a little bit more noise.
Eyebrows raise.
So that, to me, that's going to be the key indicator. Very similar to like explosive plays in football. it's just very difficult to recover from giving up 3+ runs in the innings in any given inning throughout a game. So that would be the indicator that we would look at this year for this game, for this series, but for tonight specifically, who can get a big inning or who gets the first big inning. And if they do get a big inning, can you answer?
And one thing when you look at Clemson's season so far that makes that part really interesting is that Clemson has been less reliant on the big inning. They've had a couple of games this year where it's what I will call paper cut innings. There are big innings and there are paper cut innings, right? Where they end up getting to 9 runs in an inning because they have 2 runs here, 2 runs here, 1 run here. They've only had 6 big innings all season long. South Carolina's had 6 games with big innings. Now, they've only had 6 big innings all year long. Clemson's only had 4 games with big innings. So that's pretty comparable, right? Now, Clemson, on the other hand, has not given up a big inning. That's another key element to this. South Carolina gave some up against Army.
South Carolina has given every game that they've lost this year.
They've given up.
One thing in common. Big inning.
Giving up big innings. And for Clemson, their pitching staff has been good enough. I'll say their pitching staff because maybe not in the field. They have committed some errors this year.
So that goes to your point. The 2 things that we prescribed this year for this team. You wanted less walks. I wanted less errors. Those are the 2 things that lead to big innings.
Yep. That's...
Those are the 2 things that lead to big innings. You put dudes on base for free passes. You let them move along when you're supposed to get, and you give them extra outs. That is the recipe for a big inning. And that's so the 2 things that we wanted, less walks, less errors, are what they're going to have to be able to control, especially if your bats aren't necessarily on fire. You can't give a good team like Clemson extra outs, extra runners. That is going to be a recipe for disaster.
And it's something like Carolina's got to be significantly better at, because if you look up and down the lineup, they have struck out 60 times already this season. They've only drawn 38 walks. And then on the other side, for Clemson, and you look at, their stats throughout the season, it's a different type of animal in terms of what they've done this year. They have drawn significantly more walks than South Carolina's. It's a much different type of dichotomy for them. They have been much more disciplined at the plate. They haven't struck out as much. And if I just pull up, I had the page pulled up earlier. There we go. They've only struck out 36 times this year, and they've drawn 41 walks. They've actually drawn more walks than they have struck out this year. So they're going to be disciplined. Your starting pitcher specifically, because you can't get down again, like the example you used against Army, you had a big inning late in the game. It wasn't enough to be able to pull it out and win, right? Or if you want to look at the Queens example, you had a big inning in the 9th. Big inning in the 9th, so usually win you games. You were down by so much, it didn't matter, right? If you can avoid giving those things up early, you're going to be in really good shape. If you avoid giving up walks early, or you avoid walking them, right? They're going to work counts, and your pitchers have to be in total command and control on the mound.
So this is a chicken or the egg sporty sport conversation. Ready?
Sports theory.
Would you rather have us get a big inning or not give up a big inning? Which one do you think is more important for them to win? Let's just start with tonight.
Don't give up the big inning.
Not giving up. Why do you say that?
I will say that because this is a create your own luck thing. We talked about Queens having some bad luck breaks with them making some great plays in the field. You having a couple of hits that maybe fall short of the fence, but they get to the warning track. You lose laws, but you didn't create your own luck because you committed 3 errors and you gave up 7 walks. You gave up big innings early. I think if you're taking care of business and you create your own luck, you're not walking batters, you're not giving away free passes, and you're taking care of business in the field, you're playing fundamentally sound. Clemson does have a little bit of a problem with errors. They have committed a few errors already this year, over 1 a game. So if you just put the ball in play, and they may end up making more mistakes than you do, even if you don't get big innings yourself, maybe you can get enough paper cut innings to where you avoid them getting the big one and you win a low-scoring game.
I like it.
So I think that's where I would lean there. But before we get out of this hour, though, we talk so much about the transfer portal. We go to Lawsuit City because of transfer portal stuff all the time. But I've always been curious as to what the perception or the perspective is like for players that are in the transfer portal. And when I talk to some of the Gamecock football players that are the newest members of the team, I ask them about their experience. and some of them have had some interesting experience, and we'll discuss that coming up next year in the early game. The transfer portal has become like this mythical being, this boogeyman of college sports. It has been kind of the poster boy for chaos in collegiate athletics. And it sounds chaotic as an outsider, but how chaotic is it for somebody who is deciding to enter the transfer portal and find their new football home? That's something I tried to kind of get to the bottom of yesterday, 2 days ago, whenever we did have our media availability with the new transfer players. And for a couple of them, I decided to take some time to ask, what was your experience like? I'm curious because I've talked to many different athletes across different sports about it. And usually chaotic is the first way of putting it. Sometimes it's a little smoother than others. But I really wanted to know, what is it like for a college athlete to go through the entire transfer portal process? So I asked 3 different players, and we're going to start by hearing from Christian Clark, new running back from Texas, had a breakout game with a bowl game against Michigan. So he probably commanded a lot more attention after that game than he did before that game. So this is going to be from yesterday's list, Jen. Cut 18. This is Christian Clark talking about his transfer portal experiences here.
It was very fast. I want to say like minutes of me being in the portal, I was hearing from other schools. So it was a really unique process, but it wasn't too stressful. It was really easy. Once I took the visit to South Carolina, I knew it was home immediately. So
The visit helped, but within minutes, he puts his name in there, and within minutes is hearing from other teams.
Like a Ticketmaster or something. Like as soon as the tickets drop, he's like, "We're in it.
Gotta get it.
Run it back. Run it back. Hit the portal."
Were there coaches in the queue waiting for tickets that are on pre-sale? Was Shane Beamer on Christian Clark, ticket pre-sale?
And did they have the proper pre-sale code?
Yeah, I think Shane did.
We might be workshopping something for the portal. We need to make this thing more efficient. Get in line.
Get in line.
Get in queue. You need a running back. This is the running back line over here. This is the D line. We might be on to something.
I think we are.
Trademark.
Portal master.
Right, no kidding.
The portal master machine, if you will.
I think that'd be great. And again, usually if you are a special super fan, you get a certain codes you can get in a little bit sooner. So, maybe schools that have shown that extra secret, interest, they can get in a little faster.
And we all know what the extra secret interest is.
Ding.
There's only one of them.
Is it extra time to meet with your tutor on the weekends if you're struggling with the class?
Sure. Yep, we can offer that too.
Okay. Yeah. Is it extra meals? I don't know. More Nutella sandwiches in the cafeteria?
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah.
We can get you some of that too.
Yeah, sure, kid. Whatever you want. Yeah. Is that all? Is that all you need? But for the offensive line too, for someone like Seth Smith, interesting career, Northern Arizona.
Okay.
Has a breakout year. What was his portal experience like? This is gonna be cut 24.
Yeah, I mean, the transfer portal is crazy. I can't lie about that. You kind of have to do your best to do enough research to kind of get an understanding. But again, like you said, it goes quick. I mean, I don't remember what day it was, like Friday or Thursday, whatever day I hit the portal. I mean, it's like instantly. Coach is talking to you, and you got like a week to make a decision, if that.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is where you're going to be called home for a whole year. So, yeah, there's some research involved, but it's also just kind of like a gut instinct and intuition that you kind of have to just trust and that, go where your heart is pointing you towards and hope for the best, in a sense.
Right.
Yeah, I'm talking to you too.
Yeah. So that was Seth saying, it was a big decision you have to make in a week, which is always the element of this that I'm fascinated with, is how fast you have to make this decision. And then lastly, Caleb Herring from Tennessee, late portal edition, was able to get him opposite edge rusher of Dylan Stewart. What was his portal experience like?
So the thing about South Carolina, it was they really came in late. They came in last week of the portal, and Coach Beamer, he just called my phone because I was about to go to Texas, I believe, but I moved that visit back for this visit to fit it in. So, I talked to Coach Beamer. He called my phone, and the biggest thing with him, he was super energetic, just knowing how he is. I've always known that, even from my freshman year of college, I always knew he was like that. But yeah, I would say when it came to South Carolina, yes, he was super energetic and stuff, but the biggest thing that really caught my eye, he was critiquing me and the things I needed to work on. And I was like, hey, because other schools calling me, they were like, yeah, Ken, we really need you, man. You're doing good and so on. So man, we need you. And I just feel I was wanted, but I don't feel I was really needed. But Coach Beamer, just coming in, giving South Carolina a chance, I feel it's the best decision I made so far in college. And with Coach Beamer, him bringing in Coach Barnes too. Coach Barnes, he's a great coach. The little amount of time I've been around him, you can tell he really cares about the game. He knows what he's talking about, and he hasn't been coaching for that long, but he's been putting guys in the league. And the film he showed me, I really feel I can trust him on getting me to the league once it's said and done.
So that was Caleb Herring, and a lot of interesting stuff there. He was so intrigued by Shane Beamer, he decided to push his visit back to Texas, and I don't think he ever took that visit after that.
The one I want to say, though, the one thing that Seth Smith said that caught my ear was, this will be where I'll be for the next year. He didn't say for my career.
Bingo.
I just thought that was real interesting. So
Bingo.
And
I thought that was interesting too.
especially considering in eligibility, we've made the whole eligibility thing so flexible that even if he thinks he only has a year, maybe you can see we can get another one. I don't know. It's all, you can put an asterisk on every single classification for these players. And because here's the thing too, I think when I was that age, if I had a week to make that decision, to find out who's interested in me, where can I go, and then make a decision, I definitely would have made the wrong one once or twice. So I get it.
yeah.
Treating them kind of like a year contract, and if it's not going out well, and you don't think it's going to, finding a golden parachute out. But I did find it pretty interesting for a lot of those guys. And Caleb Herring, off record too, said his relationship was garnered pretty fast, within a small stretch. Hour number 2, the early game, coming up next.
Looking for some countertops for your kitchen or a bath, maybe wanting to do some updates out in the yard with some hardscaping? Well, I have the place. It's Carolina Stone Craftsman just outside Columbia in shape, and they get it. Ethan and Rebecca, they know that kitchen and bath projects, they can be a significant investment, but they do their best to work with you and deliver the highest quality, most affordable granite, marble, and quartz while still providing the best customer service. We first started working with them when we were remodeling a couple of bathrooms. We replaced our cabinets. It's like, okay, now what do we put on top of them? We weren't sure. They helped us with the education process to figure out what would work best for us. And then every step of the process was great. So if you're in the market for countertops for your kitchen or your bath, reach out to Carolina Stone Craftsman. Tell them Jen sent you. They are family owned and operated just beyond Columbia in Chapin and beyond your expectations. Check them out online, carolinastonecraftsman.com. The right lane is blocked, I-20 eastbound at Faro Road. And if you're traveling on I-77 northbound at Blythewood Road, exit 27, the left lane is blocked. Also in the Gilbert area, Juniper Springs Road near Pond Branch Road, an accident there. The rain will continue this morning, should be clearing out by about lunchtime is the hope. 63 will be our high tomorrow, though, and the entire weekend we're looking for clear skies. Dare I say even sunny skies. 67 tomorrow, 77 on Sunday. Some light rain across the Midlands. It's 58.
Hour number 2 of the early game starts right now. I'm Elijah Campbell. He is Preston Thorne. She is Jen Jensen. And we are going to look at some graded hires because the dust is pretty much settled from the college football coaching carousel. And I always love looking at these things kind of in hindsight. So like maybe revisiting this piece from Stuart Mandel from The Athletic in like 5 years from now and seeing how well some of them are graded, because there's always, no one bats 1,000 on these. Sometimes a coaching hire is given a C and it ends up being an A. Sometimes it is an A++. It ends up being an F. Luke Fickle. So I love to look at these things and try to see which ones do we think maybe we're a little higher, or we are higher on personally than Stewart, or maybe lower on than Stewart. And it's always interesting to see how these things are kind of projected and why they are. I think the first one, though, when we're doing this exercise, we'll read through what the grades are, right? So we have the A's, just one A. That's Bob Chesney from James Madison going to UCLA. An A-, which is Michigan getting Kyle Whittingham.
My guy.
You big Kyle Whittingham guy. I actually do really like that one a lot. Considering how that went down at Michigan, I think that's a pretty remarkable chain of events to be able to somehow land that guy for that gig. Florida got an A- with John Summerall from Tulane. And then Virginia Tech got a B+ for landing James Franklin.
Pause. How is that a B+ for Virginia Tech? What is that an indictment on James Franklin, or do they think Virginia Tech could have done better? Because I would say they could not have done better.
I was going to say that was a home run. I would give that an A++.
I would give that an A++. And that's what I'm saying. So maybe he's saying is this about James Franklin? Because Virginia Tech could not have done better.
Yeah. Even like his write-up here is kind of complimentary of like the consistency.
Yeah,
of James
I would say
Franklin.
that. I'd say that's an A+.
Yeah,
I'm not a huge James Franklin guy, but I don't think Virginia Tech could have done better.
Getting a guy who was winning 10 games a year in the Big Ten. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good get. Then for Penn State, he's got B+ with Matt Campbell. You're not feeling that one as much.
I mean, Matt's cool, but I just feel like his name has always been thrown around for a long time, and I just wonder if we're not just going to turn Penn State into Iowa State.
Yeah, and I don't know what the ceiling's going to be there, too.
I mean, he brought his whole squad with him, so we'll see how that works out. We just haven't seen Matt break the ceiling.
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to pay immediate dividends for what their ultimate goal is. Like, if you fire James Franklin for Matt Campbell, I don't know if that's going to give you – it's not going to give you immediate results. Now, maybe in 4 or 5 years, once he's there, because it might take him some time, then maybe. Because I do like Matt Campbell as a coach, but I don't know if that gets you any closer to the ultimate goal, which is winning a national championship, than James Franklin got you. And that premise alone makes me a little hesitant. And then, of course, LSU got a B+ for, well, we all know what happened there. Kansas State got a B for Colin Klein. Utah a B for Morgan Scalley. There are a bunch of Bs, and one in the SEC, Kentucky, with Will Stein. But I'm interested to see which one you think is less than a B. He doesn't give anything below a C-. But out of all the Power 4 openings that got C's from Stuart Mandel, the one that you think will age better than what he has written down?
Okay.
Some of them are true C's. I'd give some of them D's. Some of them are really underwhelming.
Yeah, as I'm looking at it, you have Pat Fitzgerald going to Michigan State, Alex Galesh going to Auburn, Ryan Silverfield going to Arkansas, and
Tavita Pritchard.
that's one I don't even have enough information to make a final say so on that one. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know enough to say good or bad. I think the Michigan State hire of Pat Fitzgerald is a better hire than a C+.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't think Pat Fitzgerald should be absolved from the hazing situation that happened at Northwestern, because the head coach must be aware of everything happening in the program. You can't be the taskmaster. You can't be aware of everything that's going on and be like, oh, but I didn't know that was happening in my locker room. So I'm not excusing him from that. That being said, Michigan State was in a bad spot, man. They were in a rough. They were in a bad. They were fading into obscurity, and nobody was paying them any attention. Maybe Pat's learned his lesson. Maybe they can all get back on the same task. So I would give that a little bit of a better grade. It's a C+. I'd give it a B.
I think for me it would be Alex Golish
Okay.
at Auburn. He's got that one as a C, which I didn't find too surprising because, again, for Golish, I don't think he really even called plays at Tennessee. That's Josh Heupel's offense. But there's something to be said about, having some responsibilities as a coordinator when it comes to formulating the game plan, scouting the other team's defense. So when he went to South Florida, I was maybe a little hesitant on what he could do there as a CEO, not just as a now full-time guaranteed play caller. And he did really well. I mean, they were 9-3 last year. They won at Florida. That was a team that they did kind of trip over themselves at times to keep themselves from being one of those group of 5 playoff teams. But the offense was exciting, and he carries over a lot of the same principles, but maybe a little more dynamic with the quarterback running game because he's bringing his luggage. And I would say with quarterback Byron Brown, it's Louis.
Yes.
Byron Brown's really good. So I think the idea of that package deal should make it to where they are probably more successful off the bat than a lot of people would forecast.
So here's the one that I think is more interesting, the most interesting out of all of them. It's Arkansas. He gave them a C. They hired Memphis's coach, Ryan Silverfield. And it says in the first sentence, they whiffed on Summerall and Golish. They didn't get their first 2 guys. They end up getting Ryan Silverfield. You're not big on Silverfield.
No.
You're not
underachiever.
You say he's a chronic underachiever. I would argue that Memphis upgraded.
Oh, because they hired Charles Huff.
I would say
Charles Huff can coach, man.
He can coach. He's obviously he did what he did at Marshall. He did what he's done at Southern Miss. He's probably going to be successful at Memphis. Maybe he's gonna take over this Memphis job in 2 years when Ryan eventually doesn't succeed. But I thought that was really interesting because it doesn't have G5 things on here, or we're not there yet.
Yeah, down at the bottom.
But I feel like Memphis actually upgraded by their coach leaving.
Because he gave Memphis an A-.
There you go. I didn't even look at that. I didn't even get to that part. Yeah. Memphis upgraded by their coach leaving to take a supposed bigger job, but they ended up getting a better coach.
Because that's the thing with Memphis, man. Like, I hated the Ryan Silverfield hire for Arkansas.
Feels like you were on that one.
I didn't like that. At that point, I think I would have tried to go with the coordinator. Maybe tried harder to go after Oregon's Will Stein, who is now the coach at Kentucky.
Can we go back to that?
Kentucky got in later in the game.
Can we go back to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
They have Will Stein as a B, and I would say that's a B+/A.
I love that for Kentucky. I actually do think they did a really good job once we look at the totality of the coaching carousel for a school like Kentucky to be able to get somebody who I think is maybe one of the best young play callers in the entire sport. Good on you. That, 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, the way we as Gamecock fans are currently feeling about our offense, like, oh man, we're gonna have an offensive identity, we're gonna have something to do. Imagine how Kentucky feels after all that time of having to watch Mark Stoops football, which I like.
Benny Snell, you're getting this ball 35 times or until you puke, whatever comes first.
But I'm in the minority. I get that. All of the rest of the fans who actually love offensive football, progressive football, they get a chance to actually see some yards, some points, some forward passes.
Creativity with forward pass.
This is great for them as an organization because they've been stuck in this brand of football for so long, and now they're going to have some excitement. So I would say that just for that alone, it might be an A hire. Even if I don't even know what ends up happening, it's going to be fun.
So I can imagine he's a decent recruiter. He brought in a lot of great offensive pieces. He evaluates talent really well because almost everybody, like that Oregon offense this year, didn't have a lot of like statistical, like mind-blowing number players, even outside of the quarterback position, but everybody chipped in. And there was a real culture of blocking on that offense too. They blocked really well. They blocked really well in space. The receivers blocked really well. They ran the ball at a good enough level. If I'm Kentucky, I am head over heels there. And just think, if you're Arkansas, this is where Arkansas failed the most, is the idea that they got in on the game earlier, right? They fired Sam Pittman in the middle of the season. They got a head start on this. And reportedly, they were in the sweepstakes more so for Alex Golish and John Summerall, and still didn't say, hey, why can't we look in this direction with somebody like Will Stein as an offensive coordinator? There's maybe a little more unknown. However, I do know what I know about Ryan Silverfield, and that's that I've expected them to win the AAC for the last couple of years, and they haven't done it. And there's been some underachievement. Have they won some really big games there? Yeah, absolutely, including beating Arkansas, right? But then when it comes down to like winning their conference against teams they should beat, they just don't do it. And they always have more resources. As long as Memphis is in that conference and as long as Fred Smith is still doling out a lot of money to that university, they're going to have a resource advantage over everybody in their league, which is why I expect Memphis to dominate that league now that they have a coach in there who I think is going to get the most out of his players.
Mm-hmm. Who has a proven track record of doing that.
Sometimes the worst thing that you can do is just simply hire the coach who beat you one year when you thought they shouldn't. And this past year, that happened with Memphis and Arkansas. And they said, you know what? We went to the first two candidates. How about that guy that beat us? I know we were 2-10. A lot of people beat us. We were the village bicycle when it came to SEC football.
Yeah, but it just leaves an impression in a powerful person's mind. Like, I don't like that. They beat us. That's not supposed to happen. Let me make a decision here.
Let me make a change.
Let me make a change.
And I didn't have to drive too far to get home after this beating.
Of local note, he also gave Coastal a B+ for their hire of Missouri State's Ryan Beard. And when we were up there over Christmas, we had a chance to talk with Chance Miller. He was very excited about the hire. And it was really interesting getting a chance to talk to him about the process of hiring a coach. And it was really
first big coaching.
It was his first real hire, first hire at that spot, and the difference between hiring here at South Carolina and hiring at Coastal and what he had to do and all those different things. But he was very excited about Ryan Beard, and there's been success there, and everybody kind of feels like there's going to be continued or renewed success at Coastal with this hire.
I will say, being successful at Missouri State in year one of being in the FBS and being able to be good enough to get into a bowl game is not easy. How many really good FCS programs make that jump and they're bad their first year? Mm-hmm. Not an easy thing to do. I think that alone is a good part of his track record. And fun fact, when I was talking to him, like I was talking about his time at Western Kentucky, we're Conference USA guys, and then I was like, wait a minute, what years did you play there? Him and my cousin were actually teammates.
Okay.
And they were pals.
Okay, cool.
My cousin was a kicker at Western Kentucky. It turns out they were pals. And I was like, oh, that's the most small world thing that could possibly come of this. But now, the one last question here, too. Which of these first-year hires do you expect, now this is all of them, regardless of grade, to have the best season in year one, in the best position to be successful right away? Because long-term can be a little hard to project, but right away, the coach on here that you think will pay immediate dividends.
Okay, I'm going to have to split this question. I'm going to have to get a little bit dorky because I think it's going to be James Franklin.
Okay.
But I don't think he's going to have the most success. I think he's going to have the biggest turnaround in his program.
Based off of where they finished last year.
Based from where they came last year, where they will go this year, I think they'll have the biggest turnaround. I don't know what that ultimately ends. Is that 9, is that 10, or is that 8, or whatever the case is. But I think they'll have the biggest turnaround from what they were last year.
I think the one that'll pay the most immediate dividends, where you are immediately competitive, is going to be your boy, Kyle Whittingham. Because here's the thing, too. He also brought Jason Beck with him, the offensive coordinator.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And he's got Bryce Underwood. They got a lot of great players coming back. They always recruit at an incredibly high level. And I think there's going to be another element of toughness that guy does. Like, Kyle Whittingham is one of the greatest floor raisers.
And, I mean, listen, obviously he did silly stuff and ultra silly stuff and scandal, but I just never felt like anybody around there was happy with Sharon, right?
I think it was a courtesy. It was
to Jim?
Yeah, it was a courtesy to Jim. Like, hey, we'll hire your boy. Like, that's your dog. He coached for you, and he was admirable when you were suspended. We won't extend the search.
They upgraded with their coaches.
Oh, for sure.
1,000%.
For sure.
Right?
And I think they probably had a golden parachute because of a lot of the other scandals that didn't involve what Sharon Moore actually ended up getting fired for, but the other scandals at Michigan. I think they thought if they were to start losing and they weren't getting the results that they wanted, they had a kind of a way out. And I think that's probably how they approach that. But coming up next, it's the early game morning meeting. We have my favorite non-conference sports rivalry going on this weekend. Is there any other non-conference sports rivalry in collegiate sports that is as balanced historically across all sports? We'll try to draft those next.
Pressing here for our friends at Absolute Glass, the premier glass company of the Midlands, offering auto, home, and business glass repair. So if your glass is damaged, shattered, cracked, or broken, they can handle the job. If it's a cracked windshield, that's no problem. They'll come out to your location and they'll replace it for you, usually for free, and they'll work directly with the insurance to take away the headache. They'll come out to wherever you are, school, home, work, rain, sleet, snow, whatever you need, Absolute Glass will come out to you and take care of the job for you. Now, if you're at home and you're looking to increase the value of your home, Absolute Glass can take care of that for you too. Windows, mirrors, shower enclosures. Say it all the time. If you can see through it, Ray and Marianne at Absolute Glass can do it. So check them out online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com. That's online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com.
Juniper Springs Road near Pond Branch Road, an accident there. Also I-77 northbound at Blythewood Road. And I-20 eastbound at Faro Road, stay left. The right lane continues to be blocked. And the weather for today, yep, it's kind of nasty this morning, but that rain will be clearing out around lunchtime. 63 for the high. 67 on Saturday, but clear. And Sunday, we're looking for sunshine and 77. And it's going to be a great weekend ahead. 58 with some light rain right now on 107.5 The Game.
For the next 3 days, we have Carolina Clemson baseball starting tonight over at Founders Park. Pre-game you could hear here on the game, 6:45. First pitch will be at 7. Saturday, myself and Tyler Head live from Seger Park from 1 to 2:30, with pre-game starting at 2:45. And then Sunday, it'll be a 2:45 pre-game start here on 107.5 The Game, and then a 3 o'clock first pitch in Clemson. However, I wanted to put this Carolina Clemson in the pantheon, not just of like rivalries, but rivalries that are non-conference rivalries that are significant in all sports, because they're not all significant in all sports. I wanted to see if they're in a class of their own. So we're going to draft our favorite non-Carolina Clemson non-conference rivalries that are competitive across all sports for the morning meeting.
Good morning. Repeat after me. Today will be an awesome day.
Yeah, we will.
Let's go. Good morning, great today. Today will be an awesome day. Good morning, great today. Today will be an awesome day.
Now, I went through and came up with my big board to try to write as many down that I could think of as possible. And I will say, I don't think any of them, when it comes to baseball, has the same type of, like, hatred. Some of these are more basketball rivalries, but also competitive in baseball, too. But I wanted to see how balanced they were in almost every single sport in terms of dislike for the other.
Well, it puts us in a very unique spot because, one, you have the state idea that they're in the same state in a different conference, so that really limits your field. And then also with, like, the Palmetto Cup, we are competitive across the sports.
Yes.
So we offer all of the sports, and we're all competitive across the sports. So every sport wants to beat them, whoever them is. They want to beat us. We want to beat them in anything.
Doesn't matter if it's football, basketball, table tennis.
Yes. And so I think that really limits the idea. But I think I got one or maybe two that I can put up here.
Okay. I'll give you the first pick. Which one do you want?
So I'm going to go big board, big brain. I'm going to go Notre Dame versus everybody.
Oh.
But if we need to go specific, I'll go Notre Dame USC.
Because Notre Dame and Southern Cal, even when Notre Dame and other sports playing in the ACC, they are still in a different conference. That maybe is the one that I did not have written down that transcends state borders. But that's a good one, though. And I wish they played in basketball more.
Yeah.
I wish they extended that.
They should. That's something that they should play more often. Also, it just gave me a chance to say that my boy at USC, I'm blanking on his name, Coach.
Lincoln Riley?
Yeah. Stop crying and play the game.
That's it. That's the lamest thing.
Stop crying. Play the game.
The lamest thing.
But anyway, I just wanted to say that.
That was a layup. Or a lob, rather.
Off the backboard to myself. like Ant-Man did last night. Throw it off the board to myself so I can dunk it.
One of my favorite plays. It's always fun when someone does that. Oh man, there's so many good ones here, but I'm going to go Florida State.
Okay.
I want to go with that one right there, mostly because in football, it's one of those Thanksgiving weekend games, which I always love. It's unfortunate they haven't been competitive at the same time in a while, but it's a great baseball rivalry because they are great baseball programs. Basketball, it varies, but when Leonard Hamilton was there and you had some good Billy Donovan teams, They were fun matchups, and they play it every year. Always kind of dig at least the competitiveness in that rivalry. Now, that one is truly cyclical. Some years Florida State will dominate all those. Some years Florida dominates all those. But I'll take Florida State.
I'm going to draft off you and snipe you here, and I'm going to go Florida, Miami.
See, I was in my mind, I had like Florida State, then / Miami, but I took Florida State as opposed to Miami.
Well, and think about Florida and Miami, all the criteria that you label, whether it's basketball, whether it's baseball, whether it's football, and then also in the nature of right now, Miami's up in football.
Yes.
Right? And so they've won the last two, I think, in football. They're up.
Back to back.
They have really been able to turn the tide as far as recruiting in that state, and that is something that also very much so they are in the same geographical state, but those are two different places.
Yes.
Gainesville and Miami are worlds apart.
Completely different.
They are not the same place. They are in the same state. They share the same address, but they are not the same place.
It's not a short drive. How about that?
And it's not, definitely different spots.
You're going to need more than a pogo stick to get from Gainesville to Miami. That is for sure. Another one that I have, I'll go in terms of like real hatred here. Because I wanted to go with one that is an SEC, ACC one, but I want to go, and it's not even a football one, Cincinnati Xavier. Because in basketball, they have fought. I do know that they will play in baseball. Now, are they the best in baseball? No, but I do know, because I have some family that lives there, how deep the hatred is between Cincinnati and Xavier. It's a fun one.
And so when you break that down, you have the geographical aspect, right? Mm-hmm. We're both
same
right here.
Town.
We're both right here in the same town. And I don't know enough about that town to know what the actual beef is. Is it like these are the smart kids, or these are the rich kids, or these are, because there's always that schism.
Yeah.
Like, why do you go here as opposed to here, or what side of town it is?
Public research university versus private Catholic institution.
There's always something else right underneath it as to why. But that's a very strong one right there, because they're very, and if from the outside looking in, it's like y'all the same people.
Like, I believe it's 2011 when they had the brawl in basketball. And okay. Of course, those programs hated each other for a long time. That got elevated after that. So I'd say Cincinnati Xavier.
You have another one?
Cincinnati's actually really good in baseball this year, too. Like, don't sleep on the Bearcats. Another one, I was going to go Georgia Tech. Basketball, competitive. Mm-hmm. Baseball, obviously, Georgia's been really good the last few years. Georgia Tech is a top 5 team nationally right now. That one's really interesting. And then in the realm of football, too, Georgia Tech doesn't beat Georgia. But the last 2 years, they've given them hell. I will say it has lost a little bit of luster when you play that thing in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium as opposed to playing that on campus at Georgia Tech.
Why?
Money. Stupid. Selling off your soul. I hate it. But I had that one on the list. I also had Creighton, Nebraska.
Okay.
On the list.
When I think of Creighton, Nebraska, I think obviously basketball.
Yep.
Thinking about the basketball thing, but that is something, again. And I like the idea of one school maybe doesn't have it in this sport, but we got you in this one.
Uh-huh.
And so come see us on the basketball court.
And also, like, my favorite thing about the basketball rivalry of Creighton, Nebraska is
also probably baseball, too.
And baseball, yeah, it's a lot more in baseball since Nebraska's kind of fallen back down to earth a little bit from their run in the early 2000s. But in basketball, almost every single year, whoever wins that game is it end up the better team later on in the season. This year's different. Nebraska won that game, and Nebraska's clearly better. But there have been some years where Nebraska would get Creighton, and Creighton's clearly the better team when the season actually goes on and is played. Oregon State is picking up some steam. And then I put an asterisk on one because I wanted to get to this. Oklahoma State could be, now that they're not in the same conference anymore, but they don't want to play each other in anything.
Put them in the Notre Dame USC category?
Yeah, I got the asterisk there because they're big babies about it. And that could be a really cool non-conference rivalry for baseball, for basketball, and football if we wanted to do it. And it's not that hard to do it. Coming up next, though, the NFL Scouting Combine sneakily is this week.
How'd that happen?
I have no idea. Does it actually matter? Is this thing obsolete? And should we do our own Scouting Combine here, radio version? We'll discuss coming up next.
I-20 eastbound at Faro Road continues to be a bit of a problem. The right lane continues to be blocked, so stay left. I-20 eastbound at exit 72. Also, I-77 northbound at Blythewood Road. We have a report of an accident there. And getting things cleaned up over in Gilbert, Juniper Springs Road near Pond Branch Road. That rain continues through about lunchtime today. Then it'll be out of here. We'll welcome that. And we're looking for a high of 63, 67 with clearing skies tomorrow, 77 and sunny for your Sunday. That scattered rain across the Midlands still occurring right now. It's 58.
Preston Thorne, did you know that the NFL scouting combine is today?
It snuck up on me. And it feels like it's usually a thing that happens and you know it's coming and it's a big thing. But I wonder, as you said, if this thing is starting to fade a little bit.
I've gotten to the point now where I just don't think it matters anymore. Like, I don't think really hardly any of it matters.
What do you mean by that?
Because it used to be maybe one of the main reasons why certain players would get taken certain spots. I don't think anybody's stock really falls that far because of a bad combine performance. I think we just used to, as a football society, used to take so much stock into how fast somebody ran without pads for 40 yards in a straight line. Or we were convinced somehow that if a quarterback threw routes, against no defenders in a air-conditioned dome, that made one person really, really good. And I think there are certain examples like Zach Wilson being the perfect one, where his pro day, he put up some crazy clips of how strong his arm was.
It was one throw. He rolled left, threw it right, hit the ceiling, and they were like, oh, we have to draft him.
We have to take this guy. And then it convinced some people to be like, oh, this guy needs to be taken over Trevor Lawrence. No, stop. I remember Darius Hayward-Bay had no business being a top 3 round pick in the NFL draft and was taken 7th overall because Al Davis was so enamored with how fast he ran at the combine.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember John Ross a few years ago too. I think it was John Ross. It was the guy from Washington. Had an incredible 40 time, like the fastest in the combine. And instead of being taken later in the first round, the Cincinnati Bengals took him top 10. It was in the 2017 draft.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stuff that just does not matter or isn't as translatable. I think we've kind of gotten a little bit smarter that, if you really want to track a player's speed and how that's going to be applied to a football field, there are college programs that GPS track how fast their players go. That's probably a better indicator of how fast you're going to be on a football field when you have pads on and when the adrenaline of somebody chasing you kicks in. Because it's a little different. No one's chasing you in a 40-yard dash. You're not wearing pads. You don't have the ball in your hand. I think now the combine is I think it just is a little archaic. I think really the only thing that the combine is really good for is the one-on-one interviews with teams, where teams can really talk to you to know how much ball you know, especially at the quarterback position or the linebacker position, right? How much can you diagnose what's happening on the other side of the line of scrimmage? I think that stuff really matters the most. I can't imagine being an evaluator, a GM, or a coach who watches somebody do something on film, be amazed by it, and because maybe they missed something here or there in the combine, being completely turned off of that player.
Mm-hmm.
It seems silly to me.
Yeah, so I think I agree 100% with your premise. The only thing I think maybe is slightly missing from that idea is that the combine can make you. Whereas if you're one of the guys who was on the lower levels of, if you were sweating, getting an invite to a combine, and you go to the combine and you do one of those things, maybe now all of a sudden people start to pay more attention to you. Because there's people that are going to the combine and they're like, I'm not running. Fernando Mendoza's not throwing. Whatever the case is. But those dudes are already have their place pretty much settled. But there's guys who are mid-round dudes who are going to the combine that if they run a time or if they do a shuttle or if they do one of these things that they haven't done previously or that they get themselves noticed, it can be something that puts you on boards for later notice. and it can get you in the conversation. So I would say for your maybe first, second round guys, not as big a thing. But for the rest of the lot, there still are opportunities for you to get to maybe raise somebody's eyebrows.
Show up somewhere or show up on their radar, whereas maybe you might not have been, which certainly can be the case. And I remember last year, too, because Nick Emenwari was the scout combine.
He was
darling.
And we knew that.
Yeah.
It wasn't a surprise to anybody around here. We knew he was going to go to the combine and show out because he had been doing this all the time here. We understood that, but maybe the rest of the world didn't know that.
And I thought maybe that would propel him into the first round. And people like Todd McShay said this guy's the most athletic person in this draft. He is definitely a first-round pick, and then he slides out of it, is in the second. And then, I mean, it pays immediate dividends for the Seahawks. Clearly, they are Super Bowl champions, and Nick Emenwari was a finalist for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Which even tells me, too, that you can even find combine results that may be applicable. Maybe. Because I think still what Nick did on the football field is more of a reason why he should have been taken, maybe above someone like Malachi Starks, right? And still yet, Malachi Starks was taken before Nick Emenwari. So drafting is more art than science sometimes, too, and a lot of people mess it up in a variety of different ways. And maybe it's sometimes because they do take too much stock into the combine or not enough stock in the film, or maybe they don't thoroughly interview somebody as well, so the red flags don't really show up as much. Yeah,
I mean, so the way I always look at these are a bunch of individualized tests that aren't necessarily playing the game. But the correlation I make in my mind is very similar to like a SAT or an ACT. It measures your ability or your aptitude to be here. Now, you need to have, if you score a perfect score, that's awesome. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the best student. It's great. I mean, you got all the means you have all of the tools. Doesn't necessarily mean that. However, you can't get this SAT and score 650.
You can't bomb it.
You can't bomb it, right? You need to be somewhere. There has to be an acceptable range where, as if you're a DB, you don't need to run a 4.4, but you can't run a 4.7. Because now we have to, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't need to run a 4.4. You don't need to be the fastest person.
Right.
It's great. It's cool. But you can't be 4.8. Like, I can't look at your tape and you run a 4.8 because, brother, that's not going to work. So there are, like, a bumper levels where if I was evaluating the talent, like, I don't need you to do the bench press 36 times. That's awesome. Really impressive. That's cool. But you can't do it 15 times either.
Right, especially if your tape shows that you don't like putting hands on people.
Yeah, so there are some numbers that just could be some guidelines, and I guess you get them all in one spot. But the other reason why it's also obsolete is because these teams do their own pro days. And that's where a lot of those people get more of this information. You have their team doctors, and you have their people that you're interviewing. So it is maybe a relic of a time where we didn't have as much access to these athletes as we have now.
Right. And I was thinking about the other day, what if, like, in our normal jobs, we had to do combines to be able to get jobs out of, like, college, right? Like, if Jen and I, in order to learn the soundboard, you know, our first radio job before we got hired, we had to do combine drills. How fast can you answer the phone? Your phone answering time. Or how fast can you pot everything up?
Yeah, how fast can you cue a record?
Right.
You know, go old school.
Yeah, that's right, really old school. I don't know how to do that. I don't even know what it looks like. We could have put me through that and I would have failed. No one would have hired me.
Actually, that would be really fun. We ought to have a day where we have a record player in here and we have like the reel-to-reel tape, the old days where you'd have to splice tape and, yeah, good time.
Quite literally cutting sound.
Oh,
now
cutting sound.
Yeah, now we're not.
Oh, it's weenie time now.
Yeah, it's nothing compared to what it used to be.
Yeah.
You kids.
That's right.
You think the O-line are getting soft. What about your producers?
Yeah.
I would be cooked. I'm not going to lie. If you put me in there with, like, vinyl records and stuff, and I have to figure out, like, I have a record player myself, but I've never, like, put it out over.
You do it for leisure.
I do it for leisure, yeah, not with the pressure of, hey, if you don't get this out fast enough, there's dead air.
Yeah. Or you don't want the song to start off. You know.
No. I would be so cooked. I wouldn't even know where to start.
So fun.
Coming up next, though, maybe college football's greatest treasure in danger of being moved? We'll discuss coming up next. Arguably the most precious thing about college football, that is still a tradition that we've had that has made it through all the changes in the sport, is the Army-Navy game. And because so many different things have changed, it is refreshing that at a certain weekend in December, that is the only game everybody gets to enjoy Army-Navy for the pageantry and for really the true jewel of a sporting event that it is. But that might not be the case anymore because of the advent of a 12-team college football playoff, because this thing's starting in mid-December as opposed to New Year's Day or New Year's Eve weekend. There is maybe some talk about if Army and Navy are good enough to be competing for their conference championship games, which then would give them a chance to play in the college football playoff. We could have been in a spot this past year where if Navy were to have won the AAC or played in the AAC championship game, they would have had to play a game against Army that essentially wouldn't count, right? So now the conversation turns to, do you move the game? And if you move the game, do you sacrifice the 4-hour exclusivity window? Now, there has been an executive order signed by the president that is an attempt to keep that 4-hour exclusivity TV window in place for Army-Navy where no other football games are played on that day. Now, if we move it, you might not be able to keep that. And Army head coach Jeff Monken now has been public with his interest in moving the Army-Navy game to Thanksgiving weekend. Mm-hmm. Now, if you move it to Thanksgiving weekend, I think the 4-hour exclusivity window kind of is out of the picture.
Yeah, he's still asking for that, but it'd be everybody to get up off this spot, and I don't think that would happen.
That's a tall ask because know who else you'd have to be asking to? The National Football League. And do I think Roger Goodell would absolutely tell Army, Navy no? Yes. Yes. I don't think he would let them finish the question before saying no. That's how eager I think Roger Goodell would be to not concede that weekend at all at any given point. Because he clearly, they do not care about college football.
Well, the way the calendar's set up, the issue kind of is that they play the game after the rankings come out.
Yeah.
And there's a possibility that both of these teams possibly could be in the mix for the rankings. So what if it came down to a situation where the winner of this game got a spot to go for the G5 spot or whatever the case is, and now we've just been fortunate enough that we haven't had that happen yet.
We got really close this year. This year was maybe the closest we got.
And you're looking at the calendar, man, I hope this doesn't happen, because then what do you do? So I think he's in effort, in service of the college football playoffs, much like the conversation we had about North Dakota. Everybody's trying to get to this thing, and that's where Jeff Monken's motivation is coming from, is that idea like we need a pathway to get into the playoffs. I'll speak for myself. Played on Thanksgiving, it loses the luster for me that it has when it's played on its own individual day.
Yeah.
Because there's other games to watch, there's other things going on, there's other things happening. It just doesn't have the same thing that it has when it's played by itself.
It can easily get lost in the mix, because guess what else is being played Thanksgiving weekend? Every single big rivalry.
Yeah,
every single one. We have Carolina, Clemson here, Ohio State, Michigan, like any single big rivalry, the Egg Bowl. Like, there's so many big rivalries that those fan bases are so invested in that you might not still get the eyeballs. And I'm not just saying this from a business standpoint of, you need to drag as many eyeballs to this game as possible, but there is a true appreciation of the Army-Navy game across all fan bases in college football. Casual college football fans, diehards, there's always an appreciation for the Army-Navy game. And I think there is just an element of depriving the college football fan of that, because if it's down between picking Ohio State, Michigan, and Army-Navy, a lot of people are going to pick Ohio State, Michigan if it's that big of a game. Or the Iron Bowl, right? The entire state of Alabama is going to be watching the Iron Bowl. South Carolina, Clemson, the entire state of South Carolina is going to be watching that game. The Egg Bowl, the entire state of Mississippi will be watching that game. And I think part of what makes Army-Navy so special is having that entire day to itself. And I would hate to see that change because we are chasing college football playoff dollars. That maybe there's a way we can get it to where it still is able to hold significance if both teams are still really good. Because underneath their coaches and their administrations right now, they're in really good places.
Mm-hmm.
They're both in really good places as programs right now. And Jeff Monken, the main character really in this story and the reporting from Seth Emerson, has done a remarkable job at Army. And there's a reason why he's talked about as getting jobs other places. And I do find it to be very admirable that he has stuck it out at Army and is continuing to build and build and build and make it to where really, like the last couple of years, the Army-Navy game has been awesome because of how good both teams have been.
There's a very real sliding doors reality where Jeff Monken is the head coach at the University of South Carolina.
I love a good sliding.
That was a real thing. Real thing.
Now, the beauty of that is I don't know how that would work, because just because coaching at Army and then at any of the service academies, Army, Air Force, Navy, is so different than anywhere else. Like, how much do you change? Like, Paul Johnson didn't change when he went to Georgia Tech, and that was actually kind of special. I do love watching a good triple option offense. But you've brought that here. Do you do that in the SEC? It's a tough ask.
I don't know if that was going to work.
It's a tough ask. I don't know if it would.
That was a very real possibility. Obviously institutional memory. The president at the time was directly tied to the Army, had direct ties to that. That was on the table.
As it is a real possibility that could have happened.
Yes.
But he's still at Army, still doing it. Doing a really good job. Personally, if I had my vote, I think we keep it.
I would.
The way it is.
I want that too. I understand his sentiment, but I don't want to lose the luster of having it on its own special day.
Yeah, because now we're reaching another kind of point where it is, do you sacrifice something that's a long-standing tradition in the sport in pursuit of catering your sport to your postseason now.
Also, something that may only happen every few years. Like, that's not something that's guaranteed to happen. This happens every year. You know this is happening. I would say no.
Yeah, I would certainly hate to see it go away, but I do understand. I will say I can play devil's advocate with myself, and I understand why Jeff Monken is lobbying to change it. I think for just like a good of the sport thing, it being where it is a huge plus. But coming up next, the final hour of today's show, we'll talk about what South Carolina needs to do this weekend to pull off a huge series win against their rival.
HN for CHW Cabinetry in Lexington. We demolished our kitchen because of a flood and had to kind of hurry up and figure out what we were going to do as far as cabinetry was concerned. CHW Cabinetry made it so much better. The women there made the process so much easier. We got the photorealistic rendering of our finished kitchen before it was finished, which was great because, for one thing, it was the light at the end of the tunnel, but it also gave us something to take to get all the other elements of the kitchen put together, and that was fantastic. But if you want to do just some smaller updates in your kitchen, get some drawers in your pantry, that is an amazing thing. They can help you out with that. Maybe your bedroom closet is a little dysfunctional. You want to kind of elevate it a little bit. They can help you with that as well. So many ways they can make your home better. CHWCabinetry.com. Call them at 803-520-6837. Tell them Jen sent you. CHW Cabinetry, passion from inspiration to installation. I-77 southbound at exit 21, I'm sorry, at Highway 21, that would be exit 24 on I-77 southbound. An accident has been reported. Also, still working on things on I-20 eastbound at Faro Road, exit 72. You're still going to need to stay left. And your forecast, 63 with some rain this morning, but that is going to be clearing out. So that's the good news for today. Clearing tomorrow, sun will be coming out, 67 for the high on Saturday, 77 with lots of sunshine for the first day of March on Sunday. Right now, 58 with a little bit of light rain out there on 107.5 The Game.
The early game, third and long hour, starts right now. I'm Elijah Campbell. He is Preston Thorne. She is Jen Jensen. Our man Thomas is in the video production room here at Studio 803, taking care of the live stream. And big weekend of baseball ahead.
The
Preston
biggest.
Thorne. The biggest. We've played, 2 weeks of baseball now?
Yep.
But now it gets real.
It's real. It's here. It's now. A referendum on the team, a referendum on the season. What is this year going to be based on? Forget what we've seen. That's why I said this game is so important, because you get a chance to wipe all that stuff clean. As I said earlier, Men in Black, the fan base, boop, doop. Win again, win tonight, take the series. I think people will be back on board.
And from our poll question yesterday of how confident are you that the Gamecocks can win the series against Clemson this weekend, 172 votes was the final tally. 87.2% said zero confidence, with 4.7% saying nervously optimistic, 7% saying 50-50, still not sure, 1.2% said very confident. There's not a lot of confidence that you can get this done. But this is a chance. I think my favorite part about this year's Carolina-Clemson baseball series is the opportunity ahead to win people back, at least to a degree. Is it good now? Can you completely wipe out those early season losses against mid-major programs? Not completely, but if you win this weekend, the further those get in the rear view and you don't trip up in any midweeks or anything like that, and you're able to be competitive in the SEC, then maybe you can get that grace back. Maybe. But this weekend is a big one just because of the natural juices of this rivalry that's still there. I don't think this will ever be a juiceless series, if you will. Even if South Carolina was winless going into this game, there's still an element of, well, if we beat Clemson, that's something to hang your hat on.
Yeah, if they beat Clemson, and it's just for me speaking for myself, if they beat Clemson, we're square. Call it a deal. We're good. We're moving forward. Handshake. You have atoned for your sins of losing to Queens. You have atoned for the sin of losing to Northern Kentucky. I'm good. If you take this series, we can move forward. No questions asked. I won't even act like that even happened.
It's a fresh start.
Fresh start.
For everybody involved. But now here's what makes this difficult. Clemson's really good.
Yeah.
They are ranked for a reason.
Can't ignore that.
Climbing up the rankings for a reason. Undefeated for a reason. And if we want to play the transitive property game, they played Army 3 times, beat them all 3 times. Run rule involved in there, a close game involved in there, but the fact of the matter is they won all 3 times that they played Army. You lost the one time you played Army. But what can South Carolina do to win this series? Now, the thing that would make me vote in a poll like that where I say 50-50, maybe still not sure, is because baseball happens, right? We even saw against Queens. You might have gotten baseballed a little bit because of some balls that got hit to the warning track, or because maybe Queens played above expectation defensively on some really hard hit balls, and you truly believe that if you play that game 10 times, that result you got earlier this week is only happening on one of them. Maybe the case. But what can they do to be able to ensure that, A, they're giving themselves the best chance to win, but also be able to pull multiple wins out this weekend?
We've prescribed this from the beginning of the season. We've talked about it. You have one thing, I have one. Mine, limit or no errors. Giving teams more opportunities, more outs. It's hard enough to get 3 outs. You don't want to give them 4 or 5 outs in the inning.
Right.
So don't do that. Don't give them more opportunities to make plays. And yours is?
Do not walk batters. That's my biggest thing is the walks. And when you're looking at what Clemson's done this season compared to how you're approaching the plate, South Carolina struck out, I think it was about 22 more times than they've walked, and Clemson has drawn more walks than they have struck out. Their plate approach is really good. And one of the things that kill you against Queens is that you gave up 7 free passes. 7
free passes, 3 errors.
3 errors.
You will not win against anybody, let alone Clemson, if you do I would even say half of that. You do 4 walks, 2 errors, it's not going to happen.
You can get away with walking some guys from time to time, but you walk multiple guys in an inning, especially with how Clemson's been able to hit at times this year. They have a grand slam right now this season. They've driven in some runs. They've hit some home runs. They look like a really well-oiled machine when it comes to their bats. They take advantage of a lot of runners being on base.
Well, we gave up to the idea about in college baseball, the idea of the big inning. With the big inning is any inning in which there are 3 or more runs scored is considered a big inning. Last year, in 2025, in all of Division I baseball, if a team had one big inning, they won 70% of the games.
That's pretty damning of what the percentages are, yeah.
When you talk about big innings, the two indicators of big innings of how they usually end up happening, it's not usually just from a team slapping the ball all around the field. It typically comes from you making errors, you putting people on base. And so in order to limit Clemson's big innings, you're going to have to limit those opportunities. The other part, the flip side is this, and Jamie Bradford did an excellent job. If you want to check out his blog or check him out at the Big Spur, he did an excellent job of breaking this down. But it goes back to your idea about plate approach.
Yes.
When you strike out at the plate, you limit your opportunities for big innings because, 1, you're not drawing the walks. 2, you're not putting the ball in play for them to make errors.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked the question in a very sporty first take type of way, would you rather, but is it more important for South Carolina to create big innings for themselves or to limit Clemson's big innings? And you said?
I say it is to limit the big inning from Clemson. If you can eliminate the big inning from them, you are really going to give yourself a chance. And Clemson has shown that they don't mind winning games with death by paper cuts, right? There are a few games that they've had this year where they win the game convincingly, but they don't have a big inning, but they have maybe 2 runs in the first, 1 in the second, 2 in the fourth, 2 in the fifth, but not getting more than 3, or not getting 3 or more in an inning. And when it comes to how they approach things, sometimes it is because they will draw a lot of walks and they'll get 1 base hit that then scores a run. And that adds up throughout the course of the game. And we've seen with South Carolina a couple times this year too, where they give up the big innings early and they might have a big inning late in the game, but because you are behind the 8 ball so much, you are required to score 6 in that inning, and the 4 or the 5 won't cut it. Like we saw against Queens. You had a big inning. That 9th inning constitutes as a big inning. It wasn't enough, right? The thing with Clemson this year too is they have generated 6 big innings so far this year. They've only done it in 4 games. Only 4 games in which they've had a big inning. Of course, they've won all of them. They've won all their games so far this year. And with their pitching staff being as good as it is, I think there's maybe a higher likelihood that you are able to accomplish being better at avoiding the big inning than getting it yourself, because their starting pitching staff has looked really strong so far this year.
Well, when you look at the numbers, it's no coincidence South Carolina's lost 3 games this year. Every game, big inning.
It's a killer.
So it's something that sounds very elementary. It sounds pretty basic, but I think for a lot of the reasons, especially for this team in this moment where they are, they're going to be playing over here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Home game. People are going to be juiced up. You go out there and you give up a big inning early, then we have no choice but to revert back to, here we go again. We just lost to Queens. Man, we lost to Army. We're not any good. And that's the power of a big inning early. Now, on the flip side, you go out there in the bottom of the first, bottom of the second, even bottom of the third, you put up a 3 spot, all of a sudden people sit up in their chairs. People are excited. People are like, let's go. We can do this. We can get on board with this. So I do think looking for this early in the game is something that may have an indicator as far as where the rest of the game goes and maybe how the series goes.
And my big thing, too, is just making your own luck. Yes, not walking batters is a good part of making your own luck. Controlling a controllable. Hitting the strike zone, something you can control. Errors, something you can control. The thing that Clemson the one weak spot I think I might have found here is that they have committed as many errors as you have so far this year. They've also committed 11 errors in the field. If you are avoiding striking out, you're just putting contact on the ball. Yes, we are wanting to get high barrel rates. We want to get hard hit balls, have a high hard hit ball percentage. All of those things still true. That none of this goes out the window. But I think it is so vital this weekend to force a team that has committed 11 errors to have to prove they won't commit any against you. And then if you get in a position where they're going to make contact, Can you take care of business? Don't overthrow it at first base. Don't bobble the ball if it's hit to you on third. Be able to turn a couple of double plays. If you do walk somebody early in the inning and help your pitcher out, play well behind them, then you're going to give yourself a chance. And to me, that's the big thing. Can you give yourself a chance late in the game? Because Paul Mainieri talked about last year where these were close games going into the final couple frames, and you lose it in the 8th or 9th inning or the 7th inning, right? And he does believe that his bullpen is more well-equipped this year to be able to handle those situations than maybe they were last year, but you got to at least get yourself in a position to where that can matter.
Well, he's not hiding the fact that this is a big weekend, and I'm glad he's acknowledged that. I'm glad he said it, and I'm glad we're not going into this so it's just another game or this long-term perspective, because that's cool, but we don't want to hear that right now. Jen, this is clip 10 from today. This is Paul Mainieri talking about the pressure from this weekend. I want to hear what he has to say about what the gravity is for this weekend.
Well, my definition of pressure is your fear of failure, and I've never been that way in my coaching career. When I coached at LSU for 15 years, I used to have other coaches come up to me during batting practice and want to visit and always say things to me like, "Man, how have you lasted so long in this pressure-filled job?" And I'd be like, I don't even think about it that way. I just want to succeed. I want to see our team succeed and hopefully make the right decisions to give us the best chance to succeed. I'm pretty comfortable in my own skin, Jack. I've been doing it a lot of years and we've had a lot of success. But, there's some games where they mean more than some other games do. And obviously this weekend means a lot to us. We didn't have a good year last year, and we've let some games get away from us in this early part of this season. And, I want our fans to believe in us, and I want our players to believe in us, most importantly. And, you have to have success in big games for that to happen. And these are big games this week, and there's no hiding that fact. So, I'm not looking at myself and saying, "Oh, we got to win this game for whatever reasons." I just want to see us succeed. I want to support the kids. I want to give them the best chance to be successful out there on the field. And it's not easy winning college baseball games. I've learned that in my long career. So hopefully, tomorrow night, beginning with tomorrow night, we'll go out there and play great and hopefully find a way to win the game and turn the page and get ready for Saturday, and same thing on Sunday.
We want to believe in you too, Paul.
We want to believe in this baseball
We want to
program.
believe.
Yes.
Everybody is here because we want to believe. Tonight is a great chance for you to get folks to want to believe in something which, quite honestly, you haven't really given us a lot of reasons to believe in, but we want to, and we're here. So tonight is the night where you give folks something to believe in. And I would like to also eliminate the word hopefully from Paul Mainieri's vocabulary, because we don't want you to hopefully do anything. We want you to do it.
Hope is not a strategy.
It's not a strategy. We don't need you to hopefully hit the ball or hopefully succeed. You need to succeed tonight.
What's the tagline for the X-Files? I want to believe.
I want to believe.
Be David Duchovny.
I want to believe. I'm here. Please.
Wanting to believe. Where is David Duchovny at? Paul Mainieri, you can be David Duchovny. Make us believe and give us a little something to move forward with this season. But it is a very huge weekend. And we'll talk more about this series with John Whittle, the best of the best from the Big Spur at 8:30. But coming up next, we will finish our series on modern offensive line play and whether or not it actually has deteriorated. Today, we give you our conclusion, and you'll hear what that is coming up next here in the early game. type of messes in life, and sometimes the IRS maze gets you and you need help getting out. Sometimes it can feel like a hopeless situation, but with my friends at the Ecton Law Firm, John Ecton and his team at the Ecton Law Firm, they can give you a pathway of getting out of that crazy labyrinth known as the IRS. 803-771-9800 would be the number to call to set up that free consultation to talk to John and his team at the Ecton Law Firm to help resolve your income or business tax issues for good. And that's one of the best things about them is that they've been doing this for a long time, and there's nothing that you can present to them that they have not seen, that they have not worked with. They can definitely help you because they've worked with so many families and businesses across the state to help them get out of that IRS maze. So go ahead, take that first step to a worry-free life today. 803-771-9800 or ectonlawfirm.com. That's ECTONlawfirm.com.
Stay left if you're approaching I-20 eastbound at Faro Road, exit 72. Also, I-20 westbound after Clemson Road, we have a report of an accident there, and I-77 southbound at exit 24. There is some standing water on the highways from the rain overnight and this morning. The rain should be continuing a little bit more this morning, but then clearing out by lunchtime. 63 for the high, 67 tomorrow, 77 with sunny skies on Sunday. 58 with some light rain right now on 107.5 The Game.
It is part 5 on our series on offensive line play. And for today, we have our conclusions. We've broken it all down. The premise of whether or not offensive line play in college football has gotten worse or, dare I say, softer. We've argued the premise. We have looked on the issues of evaluating certain offensive line players when it comes to high school to college, then college to NFL. We have evaluated pass blocking or pass protection and run blocking as to what the changes in those have looked like over the years. And now we can finally come to a conclusion and put a really nice bow on this as to whether or not we think that actually has changed. And Preston, I think when I think hard about this, after everything we've talked about, I don't think offensive line play is any softer than it used to be. I think the David Pollock rant was a funny rant, and there were there's some comedic value there, but I don't know if that's true for the entirety of offensive line play. There are some anecdotal evidence that you can use. I don't think it's any softer, but I think like anything else in sports, it is changing and it is evolving, and it's different than what it used to. And I think a lot of that kind of stems from what we talked about yesterday of the emphasis of pass protection. Football is pass happier now than it ever has been, but there's still an emphasis. There's still a need to be able to run block, and your best offensive line units that still exist there in college football are still aces at both of those things.
You know, it makes me think, and I'm not a car person at all, but when I hear people talk about cars, it's always about like the old cars and how they were tougher, stronger, better looking, and I think that's a lot of the case because they just looked cooler, more strong. Yes. But then when you look at some of the advancements that we've made, and it's like, oh yeah, but could an old car actually do this, or could it do this? Did it have this many miles per gallon, or these things that happened?
Yeah, but they sounded better.
Exactly.
And you could tinker with them.
Exactly.
And you can't do all that stuff now.
Exactly. And so it's like what we remember was probably cooler or just what we remember, but there are some innovations that have happened. And I think the same thing has happened with offensive linemen, where it may not be what you remember it being, but they're doing things that those old guys could not do.
No.
They're being asked to do things that those old dudes could not do. They're being tasked with assignments in the new realm of offensive football that those older dudes were not asked to do. I'm not saying they could not do, but they weren't asked to do those things. And so overall, my general assessment is no, I don't think I think they're probably more skilled than they were previously. But as I said before you get to the skill, there will still come a point where it's 3rd and 2, and can you line up and move a man? And I think that's what David Pollock was focusing on. Yes, you can do all this. Yes, you can get on those screens. Yes, you can pull. It's awesome to be able to run the outside zone. But at some point, it's 3rd and 1, and you have to be able to say, I need to move you from A to B. And maybe what he's saying is that less people are able to do that today than maybe in the past.
I think that's really the separator, though. Like when you watch the college football playoff this past year, who are your two participants? Indiana and Miami. Indiana was really good at run blocking. Do I think the two running backs in Indiana are the best running backs in college football? No. I think a lot of that was a sign of how great they were at being able to master their assignment at the line of scrimmage and advance the ball. Miami, I would trust them on a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 5. That's how good I think that offensive line was. And you saw that against Ohio State. You saw that against Texas A&M, who have some of the best pass rushing players available. They played against Cassius Howell, right, and were able to get the job done. They were playing against guys like Arvell Reese, who's probably going to be a top 5 pick in this NFL draft. Were able to get the job done. They were able to play against Ole Miss, which may definitely not a better defense than those previous two, but had a couple of guys like Suntory Perkins on the edge and able to protect Carson Beck and avoid some of the really crucial mistakes that would have cost them games like they did maybe earlier in the season. And they gave Indiana the best game anybody gave them in the college football playoff. And a lot of that was in large part because they were able to break off some explosive runs because the offensive line was so good. I think my Miami team is a perfect an example as to how well-rounded that offensive line was and how physical they could play, and it elevate you, right? And I think we've seen here that if your offensive line play is not up to par, instead of elevating you, it will pull you behind, right? It's a great separator in the sport that even if you have great skill position players, that emphasis on, like in the trenches, still has not diminished one bit at all. But I think it's had to change because of how much better I think edge rushers have gotten. Like, think about some of the best edge rushers and defensive ends from the 90s and 2000s, right? I'm thinking of guys like Reggie White and Michael Strahan. Notice how they looked and how they played versus a Von Miller 10 years ago versus a Myles Garrett right now. Those type of players have gotten slimmer, maybe not as strong, but they're a lot more elusive. So your left tackles have to evolve to look a little different and play a little different to be able to protect your quarterback. And you still need big guys on the interior because defensive linemen on the inside are just as big, if not bigger, than they were 20 years ago. So the mobility required to get in space and then be able to move them also is required. And I still think you see so many good examples of offensive line play in the college game that I think instead of saying it's worse or softer, it's just had to evolve with the changes that the sport is going to naturally have over the course of time.
And so that's where football is such a cool sport, because it's always this cat and mouse game. The pendulum's always swinging. And so there's going to be an opportunity that as the defensive linemen have gotten smaller and faster and more agile, there's going to be an opportunity for a coach to come along and say, give me all the biggins. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to line up in 12, 13 personnel. And we are going to be the only team in the nation that is our road graders. And we're going to run the ball. And we're going to do all of – there is a space for that now, because just like the offensive linemen are not asked to do that, the defensive linemen are not asked to do that. You don't have the Tony Siragusa's or those big – or the Gilbert Browns or any of these old school run stoppers. We're watching the defensive linemen up here, and some of these dudes look like linebackers. And they're running we just saw a dude run a 4.8.
Yeah,
a defensive tackle.
Yeah, Zane Durant, defensive tackle, and he a lot slimmer than the other guys that were running, because there were a couple of biggins. He was moving, and he's adapting to what the new game, because the new game has different demands. So there will be somebody that comes along and says, no, we're going to counter that by going big, and that's why football is so cool, because there's always the counters that are happening to whatever the trends are. And the coaches that are the best at recognizing that are the ones who end up having still, like let's just use stick it to the offensive side of the ball here for an example. Like Sean McVay, when he first got in the league as the head coach of the Rams, what did that offense look like? High flying. They could run the ball. Todd Gurley was a great running back for the years he was healthy, but they were able to chuck it. They slung it. They were really good. And the game looked a little bit differently. Teams were gaining more yards on average in that decade. I mean, this past year in the NFL was the lowest team average of yards per game that we've had since 2007, because defense is starting to get a leg up. They've changed. They've adapted. And what did we see Sean McVay do this year more than anybody in the National Football League? 13 personnel, 12 personnel, having multiple tight ends out on the field at the same time, going a little bit bigger. I think we're starting to see that a little bit. And if it's reflecting in the NFL game, I think you'll see that reflected in the college game too. That's my favorite thing about sports in general, is just that there is an evolution of this stuff. As it changes, things maybe come back in style, kind of like fashion.
There you go.
Or also, you are forced to innovate and do something that no one's done before, and then maybe that becomes the next big copycat trend in the sport. Coming up next, though, we will go back to baseball. Big weekend on the diamond. Hopefully the weather here clears up soon. I think it will. I'm an optimist. But our man John Whittle is going to join us from the Big Spur. John's going to join us to give us his thoughts on this series and the season so far for South Carolina and what he expects to see in the 3 games this weekend. We'll talk with John next.
Media, listen, we've been trying to tell you all year that the spring was coming, and guess what? It will be here shortly. and you need to get your outdoor setup ready. What does an outdoor setup look like with integrated media? Well, it could be Samsung Terrace TVs that are waterproof. It could be Sonos speakers that could play music. Most importantly, you can get your Wi-Fi set up. So why does your Wi-Fi need to be set up? So you can have all your devices playing at one time without having any lag. You can have your iPad, your laptop, all of those things playing, and you don't have to suffer through any lag. That's going to be very important here when these big tournaments come. So the folks from Integrated Media can help you get set up. Home theater setup, adjusting your thermostat, monitoring your security system from your cell phone. Call Nathan and Michael at 803-948-8327. That's Integrated Media, Nathan and Michael at 803-948-8327, or reach them online at integratedmediainc.com.
I-20 eastbound continues to be a problem there. Stay left if you're approaching I-20 eastbound at Faro Road. I-20 westbound after Clemson Road, an accident still in progress. And I-126 westbound at Greystone Boulevard, also an accident there. Could be some standing water on the highways. We've had rain through the night and this morning. The rain will be clearing around lunchtime today, left with a high of 63, 67 tomorrow. It's going to be clear. And then 77 with sunshine on Sunday. So certainly a great weekend ahead. And we'll start off next week in the low 60s. Right now, though, 58 with some light rain.
From the Big Spur, I would say the man who is the go-to for all things Gamecock baseball is joining us here this morning. John, appreciate you joining us always. Good to get to talk to you, man. I know this is a really big weekend for all of us, and I couldn't think of a better person to join us for this series this weekend than John Whittle.
Oh, I appreciate you having me on, Elijah. Thank you for the kind words. I'm happy to be here and ready to see a little baseball this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I think a lot of people would share that sentiment about the excitement of this type of series because of the rivalry, because of the history between the programs, and as cool as the format is and how they do it. However, the whole loss to Queens thing, I think, has left an incredibly sour taste in people's mouths, and that might be the understatement of the day. But, John, you look at this team through the first 9 games this year, compare it to the first small batch of games before the Clemson series last year. What are the big differences, other than the obvious with the roster looking different? But from a baseball standpoint, how do you compare and contrast these first starts in the last 2 years?
Well, I would say that this time last year, South Carolina felt pretty good about itself, right? Like you were 8-0 or 9-0 going into that game. You felt like you had a good team. There was some new enthusiasm in the program with a new head coach. This year it's pretty much the exact opposite. You lost 3 games against low quality competition or mid quality competition. You're coming off one of the worst seasons in your program history. I don't feel like there's a whole lot of enthusiasm behind the second year head coach. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's just 2 totally different feels, this year compared to last.
And one thing that Paul talked about, like after the Queens game, he seemed kind of baffled, right? That he thought Queens played really well, but at the same time he thought his team played really well, and he alluded to a couple of hits that went to the warning track that he thought were out that weren't necessarily out, and he did chalk some of it up to luck. But when it comes to like maybe that game specifically, what element of maybe not creating your own luck do you think South Carolina fell into?
Well, that's a good question, and sometimes things break your way and sometimes they don't. You look back the Northern Kentucky game, the walk-off game, and some things fell South Carolina's way. But you can also look at that game on Wednesday night and say Queens was lucky to not win by more. They had a couple of guys get thrown out at home plate. They got a couple of guys thrown out on the bases. I mean, they gave away runs. Like, you were pretty close to getting run ruled by that team if they had executed properly. So, South Carolina had some bad luck where they hit some balls at some guys and had some balls not carry, but fence didn't expand. That's where it is. And yeah, you hit some balls hard and some things didn't go your way, but things didn't go Queens' way either. It was a pretty good beatdown for 8 innings.
John Whittle from the Big Spur is on with us right now. And John, just maybe a little bit of a starting starting pitching rotation shakeup here for this weekend. What are your kind of thoughts on maybe that little bit of experimentation going into a series with this magnitude?
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's okay, I think. It's not exactly how I would have designed it, but that's okay too. I can understand you taking Riley Goodman out of the Friday start, but if you do, I'd probably either bring him out of the bullpen or put him on Saturday. I don't know that I want my guy's first start to be on the road in a rivalry series like that. Your first start on the road being a rivalry series like that, especially when you're not feeling great with your confidence perhaps and getting demoted basically. So I don't know that that's the most ideal situation for him, but I can see putting Josh Gunther in there. He's certainly been one of your best pitchers, since the guys got on the campus, last week, withstanding. I'd go with Josh on Friday. If those were my 3 guys, I'd go with Josh on Friday and probably on Saturday starting at Segra and Amp Phillips on Sunday, who pitched pretty darn well up at Clemson last year for Upstate. But I certainly understand, making some moves. Alex Valentin had to be in that consideration too, just kind of with the energy he pitches with. But, they're probably going to use him to try to close out a game if they get a lead in the middle to late innings.
Yeah, the Valentin thing is interesting too because you have the left-handed element there too. I've always been curious as to whether or not we actually see him maybe in the rotation a little bit just to give you maybe a little more diversity of arm there, but we'll see maybe if that changes kind of throughout the season. But John, you look at what Clemson's been able to do so far this year, obviously undefeated. They've played really well. They had some really impressive performances with run rules and some offensive dominance. But how do you think this South Carolina team can win this series, maybe despite what we've seen or haven't seen through the first 9 games?
Well, they're going to have to play mistake-free baseball. And really, the only way for South Carolina to kind of turn its fortune, especially in this weekend, is just for guys to play better. I've talked about this a little bit on the Big Spur. It's like there's so many guys on the roster who just aren't quite playing up to their potential, which was a big issue on last year's team. And, South Carolina was never, whether it was by pitching staff or by position players, never quite able to maximize their talent. And that's been pretty much the same way this year so far. We also got to remember we're 9 games into this 56-game season. Not really time to draw sweeping conclusions, and guys are going to get hot and cold, over the course of the year. But there's a lot of meat left on the bone to become better and perform better. You look at guys like Dawson Harmon and Tyler Back and Bach and Ethan Lozama, a Reese Moore, a Logan Sutter, a Bo Hollins, although Bo's starting to come out of it a little bit. But, these guys are so much better than what they've played so far. And, it's winning games, especially this weekend against good teams, is going to take your best guys to play at least close to their capability. And so many of these guys just aren't there right now. And that's going to be the biggest difference if South Carolina, wins a game or 2 or 3 this weekend is guys are going to play better from top to bottom. It's not going to be just one guy who goes out there and has a dominant performance on the mound. It's going to take a lot of guys to turn it around.
And John, you mentioned, not maybe getting the best out of some of your players last year. And yes, only 9 out of 56 games played so far this year. But is there maybe, a sense of maybe a disconnect between some, players and coaching staff in terms of just not being able to adequately get those guys to get to playing at the level that you've seen them play at other places?
I would say it's hard to gauge that right now with this team. It wasn't hard to look at and see last year. It's different this year so far than last year. You look at, just look at the environment in the stands. It's been dead. It's hard to create that energy and enthusiasm. And when you're not playing with that type of energy, especially in baseball, things can get a little bit dull and drag a little bit. And, I'm not saying that you have to be hyped up like football players and go out there and run through a brick wall like that. That's not how baseball's played. But at the same time, there's got to be a little bit of emotion and energy, and you're not getting much help from the folks out in the stands. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot in the dugout right now just yet. But that shouldn't be hard to change this weekend. I don't think you're going to have to manufacture any of that energy. I think that's going to at least start out pretty naturally a little bit later tonight.
That's John Whittle from the Big Spur. John, appreciate you as always, my good man. I look forward to seeing you here soon.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me.
John's the best. He's a winner. We'll give you our winners for today's show coming up next. winners to round out the day's show, brought to you by our friends over at the Golden Spur, and plenty of winners to get to today. And we haven't got to talk to him here about him here in a little bit. But my big basketball winner for today, Chameleons.
Okay.
The South Carolina women's basketball team is getting close as you can get to being a basketball chameleon. We talked about one of the reasons why this SEC regular season championship that they secured last night against Missouri and scoring 112 points in the process makes it feel different than previous regular season wins. Again, it's another showing of dominance. They're 14-1. I expect them to beat Kentucky on Sunday, so they could be 15-1 in league play. But they've done it in a way that shows how multiple they are. And they're a basketball chameleon. You need them to play big in a game, they have big lineups they can play. You need to play small, they can play small. You need Tessa to hit a bunch of threes. Tessa and Ngotti can make threes and change the course of the game. Medina Okot can also hit threes. Didn't make any last night, but she went 3 for 3 against Ole Miss. Oh, you need to play zone for this matchup? Got it, coach. We can play zone, and we can do it really well. You need to play an up-tempo game? They can play an up-tempo game. If this thing's going to be a rock fight and we're going to have to win this in the half court, they can win it in the half court. I think that's the one thing that stood out about this team with all the types of lineups they've had to play out of necessity because of injuries or out of experimentation. They've shown that they can do that, and I think that is going to serve them very well as a favorite in the NCAA tournament.
Winners, Gamecocks in enemy territory. Shout out to all the folks that I met last night up in Greenville, Anderson specifically, who were wearing their garnet and black discreetly, but they were very, very proud. They knew where they were. They understand their assignment, but they understand what is going on. This is a big weekend. They were all super excited about this weekend. So Gamecocks in enemy territory, specifically in the upstate. Winners.
Big winner that I have big men running because it is the scouting combine. Now, while I think in terms of like true scouting, things like the combine to me still feel very obsolete. However, there is some entertainment value because it's on the TV here. The NFL channel is on one of the monitors in here, 24/7, and they're showing a lot of the 40-yard, dashes. And I don't care about watching, someone like linebacker Sonny Styles from Ohio State run an impressive 4.47. That doesn't make my eyebrows raise. I like watching the 300-pound plus offensive and defensive linemen giving it their all. I like to see the real test of the law of inertia to see how fast they can stop after giving it their best for 40 yards. I want to see those big men move those big bodies as fast as they can. That is where the entertainment value is in this thing, is the big men running. That's a winner for me.
Yeah, there's a phrase that they talk about when big men running. Doesn't quite have the same ring for FCC purposes, but it starts with an A and ends with elbows. A's and elbows.
Okay.
That's all you need to see. You want to see A's and elbows, and if you see the A's and elbows, they moving.
They moving.
That's it.
They're moving.
That being said, anybody within the sound of my voice, you can't run a 5 flat.
No.
There's nobody listening on the radio right now, and if you're upset, fine. You cannot run a 5 flat. You do not understand how fast, when they see them dudes running 4.6s and 4.7s, that is so fast. You cannot. We see it every year with Rich Eisen, right?
Yep.
But trust me, you're closer to Rich Eisen than you are to anybody else that is
significantly closer. May not even be Rich Eisen. He's been doing it so many years now that there is some like incremental improvement.
That's true.
He does get a little better.
Yeah, you're not that. So shout out to all the folks running at the combine. Shout out to big games. Not big innings. We talked about big innings a lot, but big games. Obviously, this is a huge series coming up this weekend, and I'm glad Coach Paul Mainieri addressed it as the big game that it is. This is not just one of 52. This is not just another series. This is a huge series in the story that's going to be told about this team's season. And so we, on the other side, on Monday, will come back in. There will be a story to be told.
One way or the other.
What it is, we have yet to know, and that's why they play the game, according to our guy Herm. So we'll see.
Now, Tyler, I want to need some confirmation here. The wrestler whose whole thing is acknowledge me. That's Roman Reigns, right? Okay. This series is Roman Reigns, and it's looking at Paul Mainieri, and it's saying acknowledge me. This rivalry is saying acknowledge me. And now he has been acknowledged, and maybe, just maybe, something can happen here this weekend. I know 87% of the people that partook in our poll yesterday have no confidence. Maybe this is a great opportunity to say, hey, team, nobody believes in you. You're playing a ranked opponent, a huge rival, a game that here everybody in this state cares about, and a lot of you who grew up here in this state know, love, and care about. It's an opportunity. Let's take care of business.
One thing I love about radio is it gives me some of the feeling of doing sports where it's like, man, we had a good show. But sometimes you think about the things that you missed. And I was so haunted by the idea that I talked about rappers from Queens yesterday, and I did not mention the GOAT, LL Cool J, the man who invented the term GOAT. All of these conversations would never be had unless LL Cool J, the GOAT, invented the term GOAT. And I left yesterday. I couldn't live with myself, man. I was like, I blew it.
Sick.
I blew it.
Sick.
How could I leave out LL Cool J in all rappers from Queens?
Our man Tommy on the Firehouse Subs text line gave me that same feeling because when we were drafting non-conference rivalries that are competitive in all sports, he goes, Louisville, Kentucky. And I was like, oh, my God, how did I forget that one?
I blew it.
That one might have been the most competitive across all sports because now they're both good at baseball because Kentucky cares now a little bit. Football is always evenly split, I feel like, over the last couple decades without looking at the numbers. Spiritually, it feels split. Basketball has always been a big deal. Louisville, Kentucky, as I throw my pen, always a winner of a rivalry in terms of non-conference opponents that play in all sports every year. Now, one of my favorite winners to get to, for those who are local NBA fans that are starting to maybe be intrigued with the Charlotte Hornets, winner, Con Knippel, because he broke an NBA record last night for most three-pointers in a rookie season, and it's not even March. He obliterated Keegan Murray's record. He's going to obliterate it, assuming he's playing throughout the year. And just to give you an idea as to how fun he has been this year, there's an exclusive club in the NBA, 50-40-90. 50% field goals, 40% threes, 90% free throws. He is dangerously close to being in that 50-40-90 club in his rookie year. 49% from the field. He is shooting 44% from three, 89.3% from the free throw line. He can be in some very rarefied air. The Hornets are actually not just fun, they're kind of good. Tyler Head, Jack Veltri, they're very good. And they're next.